I'd rather have no mother than a fake one. My husband, whom I married, has a son. This son seems unable to accept me and always throws such heartless words my way. However, in front of my husband, his father, he behaves quietly, and my husband cherishes him deeply. He sees him as an exceptionally well-behaved son and is proud of him, seemingly oblivious to his other side. So, even if I tell the truth, I might not be believed. I think having complex feelings towards a stepmother, regardless of age, is natural, and perhaps it's my role as a stepmother to accept these feelings. Yet, such hurtful words, even if I try to ignore them, chip away at my heart. I don't want you talking to me. It's disgusting having a stranger in the house. Don't look at me. It's creepy. Dad should have married his previous girlfriend. Why did he choose you? Even after Richard got married and left home, his attitude towards me remained unchanged. I couldn't bring myself to be stern with him, perhaps because he wasn't my biological son. Despite everything, I wanted to build a good relationship over time, being a family and all. I even sent delicious vegetables to Richard's family. But fake mom sending us trash? That's just harassment. Richard continued to hurl abuse at me, and our relationship didn't change at all. Do I have to accept this forever? Is there even a need to? If you're going to send something, at least make it decent. Richard is an adult, maybe it's time to stop pampering him. If you can't do that, then just don't bother at all. If that's how he feels, so be it. Whatever happens next is not my concern. All right, I understand. I'm Jessica. I'm a 58-year-old part-time housewife. Now, it's just Tom and me living together. Until a few years ago, Richard lived with us too, but now he's married and has his own family. Though I call him my son. Richard and I have no blood relation. He's Tom's son with his ex-wife, who divorced when Richard was 5. The cause was his ex-wife's infidelity. She often left young Richard at home to go to her lover, and Tom, believing she was unfit as a mother, took custody and raised Richard alone. Tom and I used to work at the same company, where he was my junior by 4 years. I knew about his divorce since we were in the same department at the time. There were times when Tom had to leave work early due to calls from the daycare or school, and I would take over his tasks. Back then, it was rare for a man to be so devotedly involved in his child's care, and Tom's dedication to both his work and child struck me as fresh and admirable. Things changed about 10 years ago. When Tom joined my team at work. I had remained single, climbing the corporate ladder, leading a team responsible for high-priority projects, often referred to as presidential tasks. I was on track to become a division head in a few years. Then Tom became part of my team. Tom still seemed to be pouring his love into his son. Even though my son has grown up and doesn't need much looking after, the fact that he can go to school and manage his life without me being around makes me proud of him. But at the same time, I feel sorry that I haven't been able to be there for him all the time. He once said during a break, and I admired him for that sentiment. I wanted to help Tom as much as I could, and then he confessed to me, "I always want to be by your side." We did talk a lot and lived close by, so I would share some home-cooked dishes with him. I'm not particularly beautiful. While Tom was popular when he joined the company, known as the new guy everyone likes. It was surprising that he chose me, and I once shared this with him. He replied, "I feel calm and happy with you, Jessica. That's why I want to be with you, and I don't want anyone else to have you." For someone who had been single for so long, it was hard to believe this was happening. At that time, Richard, Tom's son, was in high school. He wasn't very talkative with me, but we shared meals together often. I remember hoping we could become a family. I left my rural hometown after high school graduation. My brother and his wife live with my parents now, so I only visit occasionally. My relatives from the countryside, almost as if they have nothing else to say, keep pressuring me with questions like, "Don't you have any plans to get married?" Even my parents, though more gently, suggest that I should start looking for a partner. So I gradually became distant from them. I was busy with work and financially stable. I had friends to go out with and favorite places to visit. I enjoyed being single and never felt lonely, but I couldn't deny my longing for my own family. Having children at my age wasn't practical, and if I were to be with Tom, naturally, I would consider Richard as my child to care for. Just as I was feeling a strong desire to become family, Tom proposed to me, saying, "Let's get married." It was when Richard was about to graduate from college and our big project was nearing completion. So, I decided to marry Tom and leave the company. As expected, there was opposition from various sides. A guaranteed promotion was just within reach, and I was nearing retirement. Many said I didn't have to quit. Especially Tom did. Because he saw my passion for work up close. But I wanted to be part of a family with Tom. I didn't want to bring our work relationship of boss and subordinate into our home. Maybe it's an old-fashioned way of thinking, but I couldn't see balancing both family and boss and subordinate. Simply put, I chose family over work. That's what I wanted to do. Maybe it was something I aspired to. Eventually, both the company and Tom respected my decision, and I was able to retire at the end of the fiscal year. I then experienced being a full-time homemaker for the first time and later started a part-time job at a logistics center, doing picking work, which I still continue. Surprisingly, I find this job quite comfortable and realized at this age that this kind of work suits me too. Incidentally, Richard moved out 2 years after Tom and I got married. He married his girlfriend when she got pregnant, starting his own family. His wife, Lily, worked as a store clerk in apparel and was a beautiful young woman. They're now working hard, raising their 3-year-old and 2-year-old children. The time Richard and I lived together wasn't long, but his marriage was the catalyst for our eventual separation. After all, Richard never really welcomed me. He wouldn't say anything in front of his father, perhaps out of consideration, but when it was just the two of us, he often hurled unkind words at me. "I'd rather have no mother than a fake one. I don't want you talking to me. It's disgusting having a stranger in the house. Don't look at me. It's creepy. Dad should have married his previous girlfriend. Why did he choose you? His ex-girlfriend was 1,000 times better." I was prepared for some rebellion from him, being his stepmother. Though it hurt me, I understood that the fact I joined the family later and had no blood ties with him couldn't be ignored. As a result, I found it difficult to sternly admonish Richard. It wasn't easy for me to sternly address this issue. Tom viewed Richard as an exceptionally well-behaved son and was probably unaware of his behavior towards me. I once jokingly told Tom, "Maybe Richard preferred your previous girlfriend?" But Tom only managed a wry smile and struggled to respond. I was slightly disappointed he didn't get angry, but more than that, I was curious about the meaning behind his ambiguous expression. Was Richard attached to her? Well, maybe, but it was a long time ago, and we weren't together for that long. Maybe she left a strong impression on Richard. That could be. Did you two not get along well? Well, yes, we had some issues, especially regarding money. Ultimately, I couldn't talk any more about the things Richard said to me. I knew how much Tom had cherished and raised his son. I didn't want to paint his son as the bad guy, and I wondered if Tom would even believe me. So, I decided to keep trying to build a good relationship with Richard, no matter how slow the process. As a result, I chose to send a monthly vegetable assortment to Richard's family. A local farmer I know provides me with fresh, tasty vegetables, even if they're not perfectly shaped, at a very reasonable price each month. We receive so much produce that Tom and I can't finish it all ourselves, and I thought Richard's family might enjoy the delicious seasonal vegetables. It would help supplement their meals, and I figured their kids would gradually start trying different foods. I reached out to Richard to share preservation methods and to inquire about his family, but either he doesn't answer the phone or hangs up quickly. My messages often go unanswered and sometimes aren't even read. So, I decided to communicate with Lily instead. Whenever I send vegetables, Lily calls to thank me. Through her, I can learn about Richard's well-being and the kids' growth, and talking to Lily is always enjoyable. She's cheerful, considerate, and a lovely daughter-in-law. This regular communication with Lily continued though. One day, I received a call from Richard. I was expecting a call from Lily since I had recently sent vegetables, but a call from Richard? About the vegetables? Hello? Can you stop it already? It might have been the first time Richard had ever called me. Taken aback by his sudden harsh words, I responded. What do you mean? About the vegetables. Why do you always keep sending them? I thought they're fresh and tasty for your meals. Fake mothers sending garbage? It's just harassment. I didn't know what to think. Richard's verbal abuse was consistent, but he never uttered them in front of Tom or Lily. He always directed at me when we were alone. I never understood why he kept it up, but I resigned myself to accept it, thinking it's natural for him to not accept me. But maybe it's enough. I don't feel good being spoken to like this. We're both adults living separate lives. There's no need for me to keep putting up with this. What's with the silence, hey? What do you want me to do, Richard? Nothing. I wish you'd send better stuff if you're going to send anything. I've always thought if you can't do that, then don't bother at all. Okay, I understand. Don't get involved, it's annoying. The call ended abruptly. If that's how he feels, then I understand. If he doesn't want me involved, then that's that. I've decided to give Richard, who sees me as a fake mother, his space without my involvement. Even if I had an ideal vision of a family, reality often doesn't align with our expectations. I've felt this in both my career and personal life. I aspired for a close-knit family, but the reality turned out differently. Just that. Sighing, I decided to switch gears. Moving forward, I'll stop sending vegetables to Richard's place. He probably wanted to say, if you're going to send anything, send money, but there's no need for me to do that. I won't initiate any contact, and if Richard visits, I'll respond politely but maintain my own life. That's enough. One day, Tom came home later than usual. After preparing a light meal for him, he asked me to sit opposite him. It's about Richard. He started. He had received a call from Lily after work. She told him about Richard's rude behavior towards me. A few months had passed since I stopped sending the monthly vegetables. Lily mentioned to Richard, it's a shame we no longer get the vegetables. The kids used to eat them eagerly. She meant it as casual conversation but noticed Richard acting unusually. Lily had always sensed Richard's attitude towards me wasn't the best, but kept quiet, assuming it was complicated feelings towards a stepmother. Connecting Richard's past behavior and his current oddness, she confronted him, and he confessed everything. Eventually, Richard confessed, revealing the kind of behavior and things he had said to me until now. Lily, feeling overwhelmed, consulted Tom. Richard did that? Tom asked, looking concerned. He probably struggled to believe it. He was proud of his son. But with Lily's initiative, I no longer needed to hide the truth. Yes, it's been going on for a while. I'm sorry, I didn't realize. It's okay. He never said those things in front of you or Lily. This made it clear that his actions were indeed driven by malice. Realizing the malice behind it, Tom lost his words, looking troubled. We need to have a serious talk with Richard. Finally, breaking the silence, Tom spoke up. I couldn't predict the outcome, but perhaps this conversation was necessary, not just for me and Richard, but for Tom and his son's relationship. All right. Let me know when you've set a date. I might not have much to say. But still, it's a family issue. I have to face it properly. About 2 weeks after I talked with Tom, Tom and I were visiting the home of Richard and Lily. Their children were apparently being looked after at Lily's parents' place, so the four of us could have a proper discussion. What's this all about, all of a sudden? But it seemed that Richard was the only one who hadn't been told anything. When we showed up, he was visibly disturbed. If we don't do this, you'll just run away. Sit down and let's get serious. Lily said firmly, grabbing Richard's arm and making him sit in the dining chair. I see, Lily had set up this surprise meeting to make sure Richard was definitely present. Maybe she knew Tom was too soft on Richard and arranged today's meeting forcibly. Even if Richard ran away after being told in advance, Tom probably wouldn't force him to come back. Somewhere in his heart, thinking Richard wouldn't do such a thing, Tom might also run away from this issue. Maybe Lily realized this and created an environment where both father and son couldn't escape, with me also present. Anyway, everyone was gathered. The four of us surrounded the table, ready to start the discussion. First, mother-in-law, thank you for always providing delicious vegetables. Lily was the one to break the ice. It really helped our budget, and the kids loved eating them. They seemed to notice the difference in taste. That's good to hear. Fresh produce is indeed delicious. Because of Richard, we can't eat those delicious vegetables anymore, and especially the older child is really upset. At Lily's words, Richard's face fell slightly. It's pointless for me to apologize now, but honestly, what you did was extremely rude and inexcusable. Lily's gaze was fixed on Richard beside her. Richard didn't even try to look up, let alone speak. Did you really say such things, Richard? Now it was Tom's turn to ask. Richard has never shown defiance towards Tom. That's why, even now, he tries to look up and answer Tom's question. What do you mean by such things? I heard you said terrible things to Jessica. Which one? I'm not quite sure. Richard answered, eyes darting around. I'm amazed he's still trying to play dumb in this situation. We shouldn't waste time with his evasiveness. I'll help out here. I've been called a fake mother many times. Also, things like, you're creepy, don't look at me, and I feel like throwing up just being in the same room with you. About the vegetables, he said stuff like, don't bring that trash here. The most frequent thing he said was if only Dad had married his previous girlfriend. Shut up, you jerk! Richard glared at me fiercely as I detailed the incidents. I thought explaining it myself would be quickest and hoped that by revealing the facts, Richard would stop his pointless pretenses. His true nature is showing up quite quickly. Richard, what's with that attitude? Seeing his son's behavior, even Tom seemed to have understood. Why are you treating Jessica like this? What's the reason? Because I hate her. Why do we need such a plain-looking aunt? Richard exclaimed loudly. I myself was willing to be hurt to know the truth, but was that the reason? Why with someone like that? Dad, you used to date a beauty. You should have married her. I would have welcomed her. Ah, so that was the most important part. Simply a matter of preference. More than being angry, I felt deflated. Lily is a tall and beautiful woman, too. I kept quiet because I thought it might shock Richard, but... Tom began speaking in a low voice. I broke up with her because Richard was too clingy and touchy. It was creepy. She said she couldn't live with me because of that. Eh? Richard let out a short, deflated sound in response to Tom's words. I guess Lily and I must have had the same look on our faces. Back then, Richard was about middle school age. He was physically grown but acted childishly, clinging and grabbing hands. She noticed him trying to peek while she was changing too. What dash, how that's... Richard, visibly shaken, kept muttering incoherently. It must have been like a first love for him. He got carried away and was clumsy in expressing his affection. To have her true feelings revealed in such a way must have been a shock. After all, if Richard had been more discreet, he might have been able to live with his admired older sister. Even I could see Richard's way of interacting with his girlfriend was off, so I understood why she'd say that. That's just creepy. With Tom's words and Lily's final blow, Richard slumped down. If I were in Richard's shoes, I'd want to disappear from embarrassment. Since we're here, can I say something too? Lily said, raising her hand to her face. Suddenly saying that, all eyes turned to her. What does she mean by since we're here? Richard, in the past year or so, you've been on frequent overnight business trips, haven't you? I began talking to Richard, facing him. It seemed like a conversation between husband and wife. Sure, what about it? Where did you go and what did you do? What? Why are you asking all of a sudden? Richard didn't answer my question, and Lily let out a small sigh while still looking at him. Then, she took something out of her pocket and placed it on the table. Is your thing for older women because you're still hung up on your father-in-law's ex-girlfriend? The meaning behind Lily's words became clear when I saw the several photos she placed on the table. In the photos, Richard and a noticeably older woman were cuddling on a hotel bed. Richard is 28, but the woman looked significantly older. However, Lily is a year younger than Richard, so it might not necessarily mean that he only likes older women. I thought something was off, so I checked your smartphone. Lily's words caused Richard's expression to change dramatically. He was clearly panicking. How did you unlock it? You usually use your birthday for the numeric lock, don't you? Apparently, she hit the nail on the head. Richard was at a loss for words. So, those weren't business trips, but affairs, huh? I went through all your message history, so hiding it is pointless. I saved all the photos too. Richard. Tom interrupted as Lily was speaking, calling Richard's name. His gaze was fixed on the photos on the table. What's this all about? Why, you? Tom looked seriously concerned, and Richard remained silent. I realized something. Could it be that the woman in these photos is Tom's ex? At my words, Richard looked up sharply, and Tom slowly nodded. What? Lily, who seemed the most surprised, leapt back in her chair, causing a loud bang as she lost her balance. No way! I knew she was older, but how old is she? She's 1 year younger than me, so now, 53. Wow, she looks really young. Mother-in-law. That's not the point. Ignoring Richard, who hadn't said a word, the three of us continued talking. But really, she is beautiful. Looks at least 10 years younger. A real-life age-defying beauty. What the heck, Richard, were you stalking her? No. It was a coincidence. I saw her at a bar. Richard hurriedly explained, overlapping Lily's words of disbelief. He said that last year, while walking through a bar district, he happened to see her. Unable to resist, he immediately approached her and they became involved. She had been married 15 years ago but became a widow after her husband's death, leading a lonely, uneventful life, and Richard's approach was a welcome change. Richard, you didn't tell her, did you? Tom asked. The unspoken thing. Meaning Richard had kept his identity as Tom's son a secret while being involved with her. Richard just nodded silently. Oh, this is just awful, totally disgusting. Lily's voice echoed in the room. She was absolutely right. Richard knew she was his father's ex and still hit on her, all while hiding his own identity. And he had been deceiving his family with this affair for over a year. Busy with work, hardly ever home, not helping with housework or childcare despite both working, and now an affair with your father's ex-girlfriend? Absolutely disgusting. Lily hurled words fiercely at Richard, who remained silent. Well, he probably had nothing he could say. We didn't know, but it seems Lily was struggling alone to keep the household running. And then there's Richard. I'm filing for divorce. I'll take custody of the kids. I'll also be claiming alimony and child support. If you can't pay in one go, we'll do it in installments, but I'll have the paperwork ready to garnish your wages. Lily said decisively, with Richard looking at her with pleading eyes. Just get out now. But Lily seemed to have completely written Richard off. Her merciless words twisted Richard's face in misery. Get out? Where to? Go stay with that woman. That's... Tell her I'll be claiming alimony from her too. You're kidding, right? No, I'm serious. Lily's expression didn't change at all. Even in front of a distraught Richard, her resolve was unwavering. I won't see her again, I really regret it, so let's drop it, all of it. Richard said in a feeble voice to Lily. Drop what? Like, divorce, alimony. I'm not dropping it. Lily. Richard called her name as if trying to appease her, but Lily elegantly ignored him. Realizing he wasn't getting through to her, Richard turned his gaze to Tom. Looking for help like a little kid. Tom had always been a reliable father who helped out in tough times, but not this time. Tom just stared at Richard silently. His eyes intense. Richard realized he wouldn't get help. Richard's eyes shifted from Lily to Tom, then to me. Our eyes met briefly before his gaze fell. He seemed like a different person from the one who had hurled insults at me. Afterward, Lily really did kick Richard out of the house and then apologized to us for showing such an embarrassing scene, offering us tea. Tom also promised to help Lily with the alimony claim, saying, "It's my son's mess, and I can't claim to be uninvolved." He assured her that he would continue to support Lily and the grandchildren. I also decided to personally help Lily. She seemed to have thought and researched a lot about divorce, with a clear plan for the future. A lot of people around me are divorced. I've got plenty of advice. She said this with a laugh, but I knew there would be many challenges. I reassured her that we would support her in every way, and we left. Once home, Tom deeply apologized to me. For not realizing what Richard had been doing. For maybe not wanting to realize it. For causing discomfort during this whole ordeal. Indeed, I also had my own thoughts about it, though I tried not to dwell on them. I didn't want to spoil the relationship I had built with Tom, becoming family. We could use this as a lesson to strengthen our bond. I hope so. Lily later filed for alimony against both Richard and his mistress. Regarding Richard, first a contract outlining the terms of the divorce and documents for the family court to enforce wage garnishment if child support payments were missed were prepared. Then, the divorce papers were filed, and now Lily is living in an apartment near her parents' house with her 3 children. I occasionally visit them, bringing vegetables and side dishes. The kids are full of energy and were delighted with the gifts, which made me happy too. Lily says the kids don't really mind their father's absence since Richard was hardly home anyway. She allows visitation with Richard, but only when the children say they want to see him, which means they might never meet again. Lily laughed about this. Indeed, when Richard requested a visit, Lily asked the young children if they wanted to see Daddy, to which they replied, no. A case of poetic justice. It's only natural, considering he was never involved much. On the other hand, I heard that the mistress paid the full alimony in one go. When filing for alimony, Lily included a letter revealing Richard's true identity, and the mistress responded to Lily. The letter reportedly stated, I feel sorry for what I did to your wife and children, so I will pay the alimony in full. I never want to have anything to do with Richard again and plan to move. Please act ignorant about everything, including this matter, if Richard asks you. Lily mentioned, the disgust for Richard was oozing from the letter's words, and I couldn't help but think, serves him right. And so, each of them continued on with their lives. But as things stand, Richard has disappeared. Rejected by his children and the mistress, and in despair, he became neglectful of his appearance, made significant mistakes at work leading to company losses, and was fired. His current whereabouts are unknown. But his cell phone is still active, and it rings. This has been going on for months, so he must be making payments somehow. However, there have been no child support payments. Tom said, I will definitely find him and make him take full responsibility, and he was determined to use every possible means to locate him. He even contacted the mistress after nearly 20 years, trying to use her as bait to lure Richard. I'll never contact him or mention my name. I find the whole situation revolting and don't want to remember it. The idea fell through as she rejected it so firmly that there was no point in pursuing it further. Apparently, she's also running from debt collectors and has no intention of revealing her whereabouts. She told him never to contact her again. It seems that Richard was always reckless with money, and according to Tom, it wouldn't be surprising if he's drowning in debt. Lily said, I made sure to get some of the alimony and child support paid up front. Honestly, I'm not expecting much more, and she calmed down Tom, who was frantically searching for Richard. But Tom hasn't given up and keeps trying to contact Richard through calls and messages, waiting for any response. The lenient father Tom used to be is no more. Even if it takes years, he plans to catch Richard and make him fulfill his responsibilities. As for me, I'm relieved from the stress of Richard's verbal abuse and feel closer to Tom than before. Sometimes I meet with Lily and her kids, and find healing in playing together. I also go to art galleries with Tom to enjoy our shared interest in art appreciation, which makes my days feel fulfilling. I feel very happy to be able to spend such peaceful days.